I think every designer out there wants that feeling, the wow feeling.
Well,
you know?
I did a poster specifically around this. Milton Glaser had a great quote. There's three responses to a piece of design: yes, no, and wow. Wow is the one to aim for. It's not possible all the time, but I mean, if you're in control of your own business and you're doing your own work, yeah.
Welcome to the Creative
Thank
Spin
you.
Podcast.
Okay.
Derwyn.
Cool. Thanks, Jamie.
We were in talks just before the pandemic, up until now.
My agent called your agent. Your agent
Yeah,
called.
we've been busy.
We've been busy.
The world has been busy.
Exactly. Busy, getting busy.
and
yeah.
and we finally found some time to sit down and like we were just talking about, it's been these 3 years, they just flew by. And you know, the world has definitely changed. I think we're gonna always be remembered as the generation that went through like this massive change. You know, if we look back in history, probably 100 years ago when we had the other little plague going around, they probably had the same issues, but the times were different.
Yeah, I think it's been very, I guess, pivotal in the sense that, well, for example, I mean, right now I'm teaching a couple of, well, one first year and one second year course, and essentially the first year course, they're 19-year-olds,
Yeah.
basically, give or take, whatever. But they've had to endure 3 years of lockdown, so their social skills are a bit kind of questionable. Not that it's not their fault, it's just the circumstance. And being in a classroom is really kind of unusual for them. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that was, and you know, working with clients, I mean, less so because, I mean, I would typically, let's say, go to their office or they would come to my office, but now it's more phone. You know, if we have to do a Zoom, that's the thing,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Clients
So-
have gotten used to that now too,
I
right?
think so.
Before
I
it
think
was
so.
like, no, we want to meet in person. Now everybody's kind of flexible.
Yeah.
But you know, for the audience, to know a little bit about who you are, what you do, give us like a little summary of who Derwyn is, what you've been up to.
Well, I'm a designer, graphic designer. I've been doing it for 30 years. I've been at it for a while and been entrepreneurial for the last, I guess, 10 years, more or less. I've been teaching on and off for 20 years, and professionally, that's sort of it.
Yeah.
Worked at a number of studios prior to, you know, kind of striking out. And, you know, I find it kind of an ever-changing landscape in the graphic design world. And teaching has to sort of be on the forefront of that. And it's, you know, a lot of it's technology-driven. And, you know, sometimes I think the industry forgets about what entails good design, you know, effective visual communication.
Yeah.
So I've come from an analog world, and I still bring that to the table, and I'm probably behind technologically, but I'm okay with that. I mean, I do my own thing for my clients. I do my own thing for myself, and I'm busy. And, you know.
That was actually one of the questions I had here
Sure.
is your design process. Are you still using more of an analog approach when you're tackling a job? Or are you digital first now? Like, how do you tackle a job essentially?
Well, I mean, before I start designing, it's really just understanding the client, listening. Listening is important. Listening is the first thing, trying to understand what their design issue is, their communication needs, and really just kind of putting that down into a proposal document and listing out my knowledge, my understanding, and beginning the dialogue with that. And it goes back and forth, and you know, we sort of come together and have a mutual understanding on what's required.
Do you find that we need to, as designers, sometimes kind of try to read minds?
Well, ask questions is, reading minds. I mean,
I'm just saying this because sometimes a client will say, I like pretty colors and something that will make me happy. So more questions have to come after that because we don't understand what happy means to you or what, you know?
Yeah. No, you have to sort of be like a shepherd in the sense that, you know, you need to sort of pick their brain. So if they come at you with I don't know, like what's the word I'm looking for? sort of a subjective question, you got to say, well, no, it's about your business. I mean, where do you want to take this? And if it gets too complicated, then I work with a brand strategist, or, a lot of the times work with writers, and we sort of, first up and foremost, we tackle the business problem first, the objective, and we work through it. Yeah. And I guess, summary is all digital, and when we get to doing design, it's pretty much all digital. But I'm not, let's say, a motion designer. I'm very curious about that. I'd like to learn that. I don't do coding for web or interactive work. I subcontract that out. So to answer your question, I'm 100%, 95% digital at this stage.
Is there a difference between your work for clients and your personal work, the things you do for yourself?
A lot.
Do you see a difference there when you approach it?
Huge. Yeah, I mean, with client work, I'm finding a lot of it is workflow based as opposed to high level creative. I get, a mixture, but with the promotion stuff, with the work I do for myself to promote me as a designer, it's satisfying me, and I have a pretty high level of requirement, but usually it happens pretty quickly. I'm mulling it around, and then I get down to it and I do it. Client work is more drawn out, a little bit more, well, you need to sort of involve people, and I find, when there's more people on the client end getting involved, the slower it is and the more compromised it could be.
Oh, yeah.
If you deal directly with the head person, you've got a leg up on getting things done in an interesting, probably more efficient way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What's your method of work when it comes to your personal stuff? I know you're very involved in like creating your own line of artwork and doing exhibitions, and you've done like a ton of stuff. I was reading your resume, I'm like, holy cow, I wish. Well, amazing, impressive, actually.
Thank you.
I've lately, since we've known each other, I've been following on social media, and I've been witnessing like all of the things that you've been participating and designing, and it's quite amazing the amount of great work that you put out.
Well, thank you.
And I noticed that you started early on. Like you started approaching the exhibition or the promoting yourself out early on, because I saw the dates there, and that was almost straight out of university.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, started fairly early, but I mean, I've been doing a lot of corporate work, I'd say, for the bulk of my design career. And it started to sort of get a little similar, a little familiar. And I guess around 3 years ago, maybe 4, a friend of mine, a good friend from Milan, was in town, and we got together and I showed her my space, and then we talked about work. And she says, "Oh, the work you're doing is really well crafted, and it's really good knowing the client this is what they were after, but you should try some promotion stuff, because that would free you up." And I sort of, okay, well, that's awesome. So anyways, so I was working my way through the corporate stuff, and COVID kind of kicked in, and work was slow, and I think that was true for most people. And so I thought, I'm going to put myself to work or lose my mind. I put myself to work doing stuff that I thought would be interesting, and so there was a lot of COVID-related design, poster stuff, and then politics, which I care about, and I'm just astounded by the level of dysfunction, not so much here, I guess, more in the United States and abroad. I started to put together stuff I believed in, so the content came from the news.
So that was your source of inspiration there?
It was a source of my repulsion, it was a source of my concern, it was a source of my amazement, and so, I tried to distill that, and, I really took to social media looking for, all kinds of stuff, design, other creative things, and we have a bunch of friends, obviously, that, support us in what we do, and we support them. But with social media and having time, I spend a lot of time, and I'm looking for input. I'm looking for inspiration. And so I might see a piece that looks cool. I think, oh, that's interesting. Or a font that hey, that font could work well with something. And so it's like that sort of...
You are the font man, right?
I don't know about that. I like typography, but...
Typography is your thing?
I like typography. It's a gateway to understanding. It's a gateway to knowledge and communication. I think it's just really powerful as an idea. And with, a lot of young people kind of getting on board with Fontographer or whatever software they use to sort of make fonts work, it's just astounding what creatively is going on in the typography world these days.
Yeah, typography is definitely one key feature of design. Do you find that, how do you find it nowadays that you deal with all of the students, all the younger crowd? What's the biggest difference you see between how you used to and continue doing things and how you see them approaching projects, design in general?
Well, it depends, because typically in a class of, let's say, 20 students, there's probably 20%, if less, that are really into it. And, they're trying to figure it out as they go through the program, whatever. But when they get on board is when the teacher-student relationship is really kind of key. So maybe I focus on that, but, students, when they're really engaged, can be really creative, and they need to be sort of guided. So they can come up with some wonderful things. They know stuff, honestly, stuff that I don't. They bring inspiration to me. I bring inspiration to them. And so from when I grew up to comparing it to now, I think it's speed and access. Speed, putting stuff together quickly, not to say it's going to be great, but it can be okay with all the template-based, options and, awareness of style and trends through the internet.
What are your views on those templates?
Well, it's like fast casual dining. It's okay, it's fine. It's good. Yeah. But I think, to me, when somebody looks at something that I do and they say, oh, that's good, it's kind of condescending. I want them to say something like, wow.
You want to amaze them, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think every designer out there wants that feeling, the wow feeling.
Well, I did a poster specifically around this. Milton Glaser had a great quote. There's 3 responses to a piece of design: yes, no, and wow. Wow is the one to aim for. There's no more need for any elaboration on that. It's not possible all the time, but I mean, if you're in control of your own business and you're doing your own work, yeah, you could nail it.
You spoke a little bit about your students bringing their creativity and you inspiring them as well. What do you do to inspire your students? Like, what do you do to push that student that you see that, he's got potential, well, he needs a little push? Like, what do you tell them?
I give them support. I give them empathy. They come back with stuff. I say, that's good, but you can do better. I provide I set the bar high, but provide like a safety net.
Do you find yourself being a hard teacher? Like,
are
your standards high?
Yeah, I'm a hard teacher because the industry's hard. If you want to do great, you have to work hard. I mean, inspiration is one thing, but you just got to show up and do the work. Inspiration is overrated. I love inspiration, but it's really just showing up and doing the work every day for as long as you can, And
that works for if you're a freelancer or if you're working for any company.
Yep.
It's the same situation.
Yep. I mean, my wife and I were both. My wife Glenda is a graphic designer as well, and we both kind of went through the studio stream in the 90s. In the mid 1980s to the early 2000s, and she formed a company 30 years ago. But, in our formative career days, we would work 12, 14 hours a day for people who didn't pay overtime, but we wanted to succeed. We wanted to do well, and that gave us the credentials and the experience to move on to our next opportunity. So it's really just putting in the work. That's it. Inspiration is great. Work is work is necessary.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
We've got this dilemma going on now, I think, in the world of designers, which is called artificial intelligence. And to most of my designer friends, the topic is everybody has their own 2 cents about it, and I'm curious to find out yours. What are your views in artificial intelligence when it comes to design?
To be honest, I'm trying to ignore it right now, which is probably not the right answer, but I don't know enough about it to really say, but
Are you finding your students using any of the tools out there?
they might be if they're not telling me. But I mean, if it becomes a real threat or concern, I was listening to something that Elon Musk was talking about, and I think he nailed it. I mean, it needs to have regulatory oversight to really get a grip on it and in control. So I'm not trying to catastrophize the whole notion, but
there's the ethical considerations of it all, because essentially, in a very broad way of explaining it, it's copying artwork from other places and putting it together.
Yep.
It's not just coming up with something.
Yep.
It's not capable of doing that, unless I don't think so.
Yep.
So from what I know, you put your prompt there. You say you want a house with big yellow windows and a red door, and it will go through the internet, figure out other artwork that's out there, and put it together. But nonetheless, someone somewhere came up with the window and the door, so I think it's that ethical side of AI that we still. This is all just a little baby right now. We're still. This is the beginning of it, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how we're going to overcome that. I know Adobe's doing a lot of soul searching when it comes to that. I was just at a conference where they were talking about Firefly, which is this new software that they're coming out with, in which it uses a lot of the stock photography that they own. So it's their own stock photography. And apparently there is a way that they can find out which artwork or which pictures the AI actually took the bits and parts of, so that this way, I guess the author, the creator of that, can be compensated. I'm not 100% on this. This is kind of like what I understood. And if that's the case, then I'm going to say, okay, cool. If we understand that, and the machine, quote unquote, can say, I took this from Derwyn and a little bit from Jamie and Sophia, and now I put this together, but I want to acknowledge them. It's a little bit better, but is it?
It's super scary, and I think, I don't know, we're kind of living in a traumatized world, and the media is complicit to that. And I just don't know enough about it to really predict the future or, recommend solutions at this stage. But I was having a chat with a photographer friend, and he was saying, well, oh yeah, no, this is real and it's bad. And the creativity comes from people entering words to describe what they want, as opposed to lighting a situation and composing a situation. Apparently, according to my friend, he says, well, you punch in all these words.
Yeah.
And okay, I don't know. I hope it doesn't. Well, things are going to change. Computers revolutionized the industry however many years ago, put a lot of people out of work.
Yeah.
And, we're still playing catch up with that, I think. So what's going to happen? I don't know.
I honestly think and hope that creativity will still stand and will still prevail, because exactly based on what you're saying, I think machines will, answer the prompt that you're giving them and will figure something out. But it's using ones and zeros. I don't think there's the emotion isn't there. Like I don't think a machine is ready yet to look at an ad and figure out, what, I want this type of emotion to come out on this ad because that's what the product means, or that's what the client told me that they want the product to represent. I don't know, those prompts have to be really good to get to that point.
I can see it kind of satisfying the sort of middle ground maybe, and but I think creativity will continue. What that looks like, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know. For me, I'm kind of in the kind of later stages of my career, so I can't say I'm going to kind of be an expert on AI. Maybe I need to be knowledgeable about it. But I did a letterpress printing workshop last summer in Berlin, Germany with Eric Speakerman. I want to kind of go backwards a little bit and just smell ink and do stuff like that. That to me is where I started.
Well, you know, a lot of the younger generation, I have my daughter back there behind the cameras, and I feel like they want to tap in to the history, to the raw stuff, you know. I see her loving her vinyls, and I know we can get into that a little bit as well. But it gives me hope to see that the younger generation, as much as they have all of this side available to them, where they can just say, design me this, and it's going to happen, they also have that sense of, I like the way things were done before, the way things looked before, the way things felt before.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's been a lot of studies around the impact of social media on young people, and it like as of late, I think it was the New York Times, somebody said, oh, it's kind of really bad for young people to be on their screens like most of the day and a lot of the evening. Obviously that makes sense to me, but I think just by, you know, whether it's parents or colleagues or other people just sharing the experience that, you know, the world is a big world, and there's more to our phone and more to Instagram or whatever platform of choice. I mean, just keeping those, you know, those experiences open. You know, my students tend to like print more than they do digital. It's kind of consistent feedback that, you know, they do that. Something about being tactile and, you know, something in your hand.
That smell of ink and paper.
Yeah, exactly. Still, flipping.
Yeah.
You know, each is good in its own right, and I think we're just going to have to define it somewhat more. You know.
Yeah, I think we're definitely moving on to a very interesting next few years when it comes to art, technology, the implementation of AI and AR, augmented reality, is also a very interesting section of the art world that, you know, the ability to work with analog material and introduce the augmented reality side to it, which I find to be extremely interesting as cool, well. Right? So the integration of all of this, it might actually bring up some quite interesting pieces of art. Who knows?
I think so. I mean, I think there's going to be casualties, there's going to be disruption, but it's all about change. You know, it's all about progress is a good word, but evolution. You know, how tech can really drive stuff. But tech in and of itself isn't, you know, making, like, people bring to me more creativity than computers do any day.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so too. And in terms of you, I know you like to travel. You like to take pictures.
Sure.
Is that another passion of yours, the photography side?
Yeah, I like pictures. I mean, I don't know. We do travel, which is really great, and we're grateful for that. But I just like to document stuff, you know, and, you know, being in a cool situation or just seeing something and cropping it and sort of, you know, taking it out of its typical context is of interest to me.
And do you find inspiration from your photography, from what you see around in the world? You try to bring that into your design?
Oh, I think it's the opposite, actually. My kind of design awareness kind of filters into, you know, oh, that crop on that sort of average looking building, if I crop it a certain way, that would make it more interesting. So I think it's the opposite.
It's actually the opposite. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah.
And what about culture-wise? You know, going to all of these different countries, obviously there's different cultures, different art in all of these cultures. Has that inspired you in some projects or in general or
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, with COVID, and, my involvement and my interest in, social media in a good form has really kind of grown. And I've met some incredible people who I've been kind of in touch with more often than not. And had I not had like let's say an Instagram page or a Facebook or a LinkedIn page, I would never have met them otherwise, because I don't know. I don't know how it exactly works with the algorithms, but you pick up on hashtags and the thing feeds you similar
yeah.
page profiles or whatever. I've met some really super cool people that I consider my friends these days, and that's really awesome. So
Cool. We also
but you were asking me. Sorry, I kind of got off on a tangent about culture. I think culture is so important. Maintaining it, being aware of it, learning about it, whether that's music, whether that's food, whether that's architecture, all that stuff kind of just basically enriches people's lives when one is aware of these things. Yeah.
You touched on music, and I know you're a music guy.
Yeah, music is one thing, and it's very powerful. I mean, I do listen to a lot of music, and I just love having that. But I mean, just like I say, just having the ability to travel and soak up different experiences. Life is short, and we only have so much time, and I think it's incumbent upon us to dig into it.
You're a big vinyl lover, aren't you? Mm-hmm. What drew you into that? Was it only music, or was there a hint of design when it comes to the album covers?
Well, I mean, I grew up with that format, and that was sort of the go-to thing for recorded music. And there was cassettes, but they sounded crappy, so I didn't really get into that. Then compact discs, it was a sort of flash in the pan, which didn't really last for me. But it kind of was, album graphics were big time. That was kind of my gateway into graphic design in university. And so, just having something to hold on to and something large you can read the liner notes. Nowadays, like, there's such really great bespoke packaging around the vinyl idea.
Actually, what's the big difference you see from the earlier on albums you have to the ones you can pick up nowadays? What are you seeing?
Well, the price is brutal.
In terms of art, let's just keep it there.
Yeah. Somebody said, well, with inflation, it's sort of running the sort of, something sort of predictable. So in the 80s or 90s or whatever, 80s, I guess, 70s, $5 for an album. Now it's like 35, 40. So with inflation, that's the way it goes. But in terms of album art, I mean, as far back as the 1950s, with illustration and design and, like Blue Note Records, for example, or, other people like that, other companies like that. I think there's a little bit more exploration these days with analog productions, like screen printing covers and having multiple gatefolds, and it's really kind of been explored more robustly these days because there's a market for it. There's people pay big money for this stuff.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty crazy projects. Like they go really outside of the box to try to come up with different ways of packaging it and introducing it.
Yep.
I know that Anna got a U2 album that they sent over to their fans and all of that. That was like, whoa. It was quite some craftsmanship to get that done.
Yeah, there's insane levels of craftsmanship with all the, while with colored vinyl, etched vinyl, different shapes of vinyl, limited editions where people spend horrendous amounts of money on it.
But they're cool. I mean, they've got that cool factor to them. There's
I think
no way out of it.
I mean, that's all about the packaging. To me, when it's done right, it just sounds better. I'm willing to put in the effort of getting up and changing the side, and I'm good with that because I like the way it sounds. apart from the artwork. Yeah.
100%. So I'm going to ask you the last question of the day, which is if there are any inspired designers out there, artists out there that are thinking of, I want to start this lifestyle. I want to be an artist. I want to get into graphic design. What would be your 2 cents for them?
Like for someone starting out, what I suggest? Okay, well that's a
or
great,
to be aware of, or
that's a great question. Try it at school, see if it feels like something you want to do, but ultimately find your passion, whether it's graphic design or I don't know, whatever that means. Doesn't have to be, but I think if you find if anybody is like I tell my students, I tell young people, just find what you're passionate about, because if you do, that'll take you through all the ups and downs and all the difficult times. Don't listen to your this is a bad thing. Don't listen to your parents. Well, you should, but don't listen to people telling you should do this. You got to find what matters to you. And then if that's the case, you just do the deep dive, just go crazy.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, and people don't say it in a bad way, right? But they'll give you advice as to, why don't you do this? You'll be much more successful money-wise.
Right.
And my advice is, don't worry about the money. The money will follow you.
100%. 100%. I have friends who, parents said, oh, you'll make more money doing this. And they did that and they quit. They found other things. But I think at the end of the day, it's simple, complex. Find passion, and that'll get you through.
So let me just interrupt this conversation for 2 seconds to say thank you to the guys that have been supporting us here at the Creative Spin podcast. Café Brasiliano. This is the space we're at. So if you're in Toronto or if you're visiting Toronto, now you know of a cool place to come and grab a nice coffee or sandwich. So make sure to come around, support these guys. You're supporting us at the same time. Thanks. I don't know if you've downloaded the Photoshop beta version that's out there now. No. I downloaded that thing today because on TikTok or Instagram, whatever it was, I kept seeing that. I'm like, this is insane. Does this really work this way?
Is that the one where you can change angles and...
You can change anything. It's insane. So I grabbed the picture that I was doing whatever for a client, and he had a black shirt on. And so you can essentially go with the lasso tool, just roughly. You don't even need to get close to it. And you type in, change the shirt to pink with yellow stripes. It does a perfect job, Derwyn.
It's kind of frightening too, right?
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I tried it on another picture where I'm in a back alley on Queen Street, and the back alley is all dirty, and the ground's all dirty. So I quickly just select the road and make this road cleaner.
Okay.
Poof. And it went around my legs, and it did the perfect thing. Like,
holy.
I'm like, this is crazy.
And this is like a test version or something.
It's saying beta version, but it's still working very well. I just did an oval on the back, and I said, add a person to the back. Does it not only add the person in the perfect angle?
How does it know what person or who?
It just selects, and it gives you 3 to 4 options. That's another one. And so not only did it put the person there, it added the bokeh that the picture had in the background there. I'm like, how does it know what to do?
Yeah.
But we're talking, how long did it take? What, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, something like that? And I'm like, this is kind of crazy, and where is it going to stop, right? And when we're talking about creativity, it's like, before you had to be creative in order to create something good. Today you need to know how to write well in order to create something decent.
Yep, that helps. Yep.
it's kind of a weird world we're living in, because now if you know how to give the right prompts,
Right. I see. Yeah.
you can create, and you don't need to know anything about design. Will it look like crap? Probably. It might not align 100%. But what I'm saying is it still will affect the client's perspective and perception of what they should be paying creative to do a certain job. Because for me, that's always been a fight. A good, I'm not going to say good fight. It's been a challenge.
Conversation.
Conversation. I like that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
To explain, yeah, I'm charging this much because there's all of this that has to be done.
I think that'll be forever and ever, you know? I mean,
But it's hard because now the client will say, oh, my son just gave two prompts to this program and it just did it for him.
right.
Why are you charging me this much?
Yeah.
And it's becoming harder and harder and harder to prove a point. Because first of all, if the person is asking you that, they obviously don't know, they don't know enough.
They don't know enough, right? And
So-
they're looking at price only.
They're looking at a cost
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
It's a transactional job.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
they're looking for a tool,
Yep.
because we're just a tool. In their head, we're a tool that can get the stuff done that they want done that they can't do. Now we're going to be replaced by another tool that can half-ass it.
But I really think that, I mean, that people like us will still be vital because we meet with people, we have conversations, we have a dialogue, we're interacting, and we go back and we do stuff, we come back, we work. It's still a
Process.
It's still a human-based process. Not all the time, but you know, when there's, you know, I say good projects as opposed to, oh, I'll just send you the manuscript and you can lay it out, and that's pretty mechanical. But I think when you can problem solve with a client,
Yeah.
you can sit down and just kind of understand it. You know, I don't think really that, from what I gather, like, you know, technology can kind of echo that at this point.
If we look back a couple of years ago when Fiverr came to the field, and everyone was like, "That's it." I'm like, I can't be a designer anymore because now Fiverr is going to do, you know, they're going to charge $10 to create a logo, and who's going to be doing it with me? And we've seen that, yeah, there are still people that go
Yep.
there and get it done because
Yep.
they don't need. Listen, I'm actually the first one to say, if you're opening a really small mom and pop shop and you don't have money, and if you need to start off something, go that route. Whenever you're ready,
Yeah.
talk to someone that can guide you through the right way of doing it.
Yeah,
But
sure.
if you're just opening doors and you're really, you know, you don't have enough of a budget and all of that, then I get that part.
Startups
And
are
it works.
tough. Startups have no money, right? Usually.
So
Yeah.
just start with that. I think we, the creative people around here, we're going to be part of that group where if somebody's serious and somebody wants to do something seriously and wants to have that interaction, that one-on-one, to be able to project the feeling of the product or the feeling of the company and all of that, there is always going to be the space for that.
Well, I think, you know, relationships, client relationships or personal relationships are largely based on trust. And I don't think a computer or a program can establish trust with any human person who's going to pay you money to, you know, figure out something for their business to, you know, grow their business or create a differentiation in the marketplace. I think it's, you know, we can't lose that consultative aspect because it's a people business.
Is
right?
consulting like the part of the design that consists of consulting with clients, dealing with clients. Is there a component, such a component in university?
Meaning
for
what?
Getting designers ready for that part. Because I know obviously the design
Yeah,
aspect and
yeah,
all of that, but
yeah.
I'm talking more about the one-on-one with the client.
Well, I'd say in my classes there are. I can't speak for everybody. There's no class saying communicate with client 101. It's, to me, I you know, say, oh, you're the designer, you're the creative guy, person, whatever. I'm the client, so I'm going to give you the brief. You have to sort of come back with 5 or 10 options in the next week and make a case for them. Why did you do this? Not because I like blue or I like this. That's fine. We do like stuff, but you need to create a reason so that me, client, who's not visually literate, can say, ah, never thought of that. Very good. Here's a check for the first job, right?
But there's not a specific class that you can take for that. Like,
No,
right?
I don't, to my knowledge, I don't know.
So if they're lucky enough to land on in your class as an example, you'll teach them a little bit.
I think a lot of teachers probably go there. I can't, like I say, I can't,
Do you think they should make a class for that? Or at least a few hours?
It might exist, in a very, but I'm unfamiliar with it. I would hope it does, right?
Because I
Design
think
for business.
I honestly think it's a key aspect to what we do.
It's so important. Absolutely.
You can be an extremely good designer, illustrator, but if you don't know how to communicate with your client, ask the right questions, and really dig in for the answer, you might not be presenting you might be presenting a version of that project that you like as an illustrator, but not so much the client if you don't know how to get there.
It's the kind of thing, if you're the client and I'm the designer or vice versa, and I'm English and you're speaking French and you're saying all the right stuff, I'm not going to get it. It's about connecting on language and talking about what listening and just breaking it down. And as a consultant, as a designer, I think that's just at the core of what we do.
And to that point, I feel like there's a little bit of communication issue with the younger generation, not so much because they want to, it's because they've been raised with technology that allows them to communicate with each other via text and not so much one-to-one.
It's a big
Do
problem.
you feel that there's a problem there?
Big time. Yeah, big time. Yeah.
So you feel that in class?
Oh, absolutely. Like I say, my students this past term were 19-year-olds, and there was a group within the class that you had to drag it out of them, and even still, they weren't particularly open to that. Some people are more comfortable talking to other folks, but if you're going to want to be a designer, I think you can't just sit in the corner and do design. You've got to be able to write reasonably well. You've got to stand up in front of, as much as it scares the crap out of you, like a class full of people, right? You got to talk about your work. You got to be articulate to the point where you're able to do that eventually for clients or for your boss. If you don't, you're done. It's over. Yeah,
and this is why I think, going back to the earlier question of is there a class that will get the student ready to approach clients and to be in front of a group presenting their thing. Yeah, you guys are doing it here and there with the projects, but I honestly think like more teachers, professors like yourself to be in front of a class just dedicated to that. Okay, don't worry about the design. Pretend you already have the design. Now you have to sell it to me. I think that's a core value in the business.
No, 100%. I think it should be like sort of intertwined all the way through the curriculum, maybe towards the end where, presentation skills or writing skills. But again, I think it needs to be sort of integrated all the way through.
Yeah, because it doesn't even need to be necessarily where we've been talking from a business perspective, but it can be just from a designer's perspective to go up to their superior at work and say, listen, I designed this because I feel and I know and whatever. Make your presentation and say, this is why I designed it this way. And not just, here you go.
First project I give to the 19-year-olds, first year, second term classes, research and put together a design brief, and I explain what that is, and I say, okay, here's what's important, here's what you need to do, go, right?
Yeah, that's
what they do. So they need to sort of break it down and come back and tell me why it's important.
Well, it's good that you're doing that, because I feel like that's really important, and I feel like you know this because you've obviously worked in the field, you've owned your companies, you've dealt with a lot of clients, and that experience is there's so much value in having that in the classroom.
You need to. I mean, that's not going to go away, but also being a good project manager, you know, once the job is kind of going, you need to schedule stuff, you know, work back schedules, critical dates, you know, when the project is humming along, and then you've got an event you got to put together a bunch of stuff for, you got to sort of plan maybe, I don't know, 3-4 days in advance and give some buffer, and you got to be on top of the client because they'll just let it go, and oh, we need that, oh, but today's the event, right? Oh, and then, you know, they look around and you need to help them like every day, really.
But on your own stuff, you love using colorful stuff. Is that something that was always in you? Like the usage of color? Is it just something that makes you feel good? Is it just, like, what is it?
Just makes me, I don't know, just makes me feel good, I guess. And, you know, that's a good point. It's so easy when you're looking at something on screen to just change. It's, you know, fast and convenient. And, but I do think, you know, with social media, people like punchy, bright, happy, or not so happy, but just punchy, bright stuff.
But you're right, it is happy. I mean, when you look at bright colors, I think the feeling is happiness, right? Rather than if you look at, you know, dull colors, you're going to be a little bit sad. But
no, totally.
I've noticed that you have that tendency of going towards the more punchy color.
Yeah, no, I like it. If there was a style, I tend to gravitate towards that. But
for sure.
You know, big type and sort of weird layouts. You know.
You've gone quite wild with typography on your posters, and I love them. Like
thanks.
You got some really cool stuff.
More to come.
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm not under any deadline or any sort of self-inflicted pressure. When something kind of presents itself, you know, from a content or a style point of view, that's when I get on with it. There's nothing really in the pipeline right now, but tomorrow might be a different story.
Keep creating, man. No, honestly, congrats, because all your work is, like I said, I follow all your stuff, and it's quite good to, when you're scrolling nonsense, and then you see a nice poster or a nice something put well together. You're like, okay, cool.
Well, you know, it was kind of, it just, I don't know, happened. I can't really explain it anymore, other than I didn't have any work and I needed something to do, right? And so, let's try this. Oh, that's cool. Well, what about that? Okay, let's try that on. Okay, this is fun. I'm having a good time.
And I guess you didn't have the weight of any clients over you or anything, so you're just doing it for yourself.
Just myself, just me.
So
just me.
It liberates you.
Yeah, because, you know, as you know, clients can sort of water it down, and clients pay the bills. That's always going to be. But I found it sort of 2/3 into my career, and it's kind of rebooted it.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So awesome. Find passion, find what interests you. That's, you know, yeah.
If you could remember, like, more or less the topics that we spoke about here, and if you have certain pieces of artwork that you think would fit nice and that you're okay for us putting up, because as we're talking about certain things, like, I can make things pop up on the screen, like.
I mean, I guess the big one, and I can certainly do that, I'd be happy to, would be that piece Dove for Ukraine.
Yeah.
You know, it started out in an interesting way. I put it together for a studio promo in different colors, and I remember, obviously, what was it, a year back or something? Oh, you know, that's a pretty strong image, and I switched up the colors and I put a little blurb at the bottom, and it really resonated with people, you know, and it got a ton of exposure, and, you know, I donated it to Graphis in New York so they could sell it. For all the proceeds go to Ukrainian charities, and it's getting exhibited and stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome. Amazing. Derwyn, thank you so much for swinging by.
Thanks, Jamie.
This is a great conversation.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have to have you back. You know, talk more, go more in depth about some certain topics. That we
sure, man. Anytime. I'm good. I don't live too far.
Okay. So hope you guys liked it. We'll catch you guys on the next one.